So here we are. This is the fourth lecture, I think. We're up to Chapter 4, and then I'll start demonstrating the Web Security Academy project. So I've got slides down here. And let's take a look at mapping the application. This is really important. In the first step in any pen test, if you take a pen testing class, you'll find out the first step is reconnaissance. Before you start, and this is the same thing with coding, amateur coders, you give them a problem and they start typing code. Professional coders plan what they're going to do. They spend 80% of their time planning how it's going to work with like a block diagram, this module will do this, and they don't code until they've really figured out the logic carefully. And in the same spirit, you have to map out the application. The first thing you have to do is find out all the pages, how they connect to every other page, and so on. You're trying to find all the functionality and content in an application. And what you're trying to find is the attack surface and vulnerabilities. The attack surface is all the ways messages can flow into the app, because all those are potential ways to attack it, and the vulnerabilities are weak spots you can hit in the app. So to enumerate the content, one thing commonly used is web spiders. These are what search engines use, like Google. They use a spider to find all the pages on the internet. So you load the web page, then you find all the links on the page, then you click all the links and load those pages and find all the links and keep going, and you'll find all the pages that have a link to them somewhere. Now this would expand to the whole internet, but you normally restrict it to only look in one top-level domain, only down in that domain, so it is not an infinite search. Yeah?
Spider won't work with the Ajax.
Won't work with what?
Won't work with the Ajax.
That's right. There's a bunch of things the spider cannot see. We're going to talk about that. The spider only finds some of the pages. Then that's a problem. So now suppose you have a form, like a fill in your address form or a login form. The spider can parse this form, and it can fill it with random data and try submitting it, trying to get to the next page, but frequently it will not be able to get to the next page because there'll be syntax checkers, like you have to give an address with a valid zip code or something, and the spider is not smart enough to fill it in with good data. So it can also look at JavaScript and find URLs in there, and ZAttack Proxy is an open source spidering engine in addition to a vuln scanner of sorts. All right, that's not one of the many tools that can do this spidering, but you can also do it in burp, and that's what we're going to do to some extent. All right, and one issue is robots.txt. This was originally there so websites could tell search engines to ignore certain areas. So you can just have a robots.txt. Here's City College's robots.txt with various things like sitemap and campuses and chat that you shouldn't go into. So search engines are requested not to look in here. Now, you have no way to enforce that. And in fact, of course, hackers will often look here and then deliberately go in there. This is apparently where you have the good stuff. But anyway, you can request that search engines don't look in there. So automatic spidering, just like you said, the problem is it can't handle unusual navigation elements like dynamically created menus, Ajax, ActiveX, Java. There may be links that appear to a real user that they can click on that the spider can't find, so it does not explore that part of the site. So you always need to do some manual exploration in addition to automated exploration. And I was just, someone asked a question in the chat, can it go through a CAPTCHA? And it can't. That's the whole point of a CAPTCHA, that an automated process is not supposed to be able to do it. So that's another issue. So this is why there's a general thing of all, I'm just preparing a class for one of my consultancies in web app security, and we were talking about this. You have to use automated tools and manual tests. You cannot just use one of these. Both of them are necessary to test, to find the vulnerabilities in an app. So you might have validation checks, checking to make sure the email address, telephone number, and so on are correct. And most spiders are not going to be able to understand and fill that in with the right data. So they won't get past that form. Yeah.
It seems like those spider tools, they haven't been updated for a long time. So that's why you cannot deal with the latest features. Yeah, it may be true too, that spiders are out of date and don't know the latest things. Anyway, another fundamental problem is the spider keeps track of which URLs it has visited, and it will not visit the same URL again. But remember, we talked about this. Some URLs are, there's navigation in which the same URL might show different things. For example, if you might implement every user action with a post to this, with parameters determining the action, and the spider will think, I've already seen this page, so I don't need to come back. And there are many ways this can happen. So like spider can miss things in a lot of ways.
All right, also the opposite can happen. Some applications put volatile data in the URL, so the spider will keep fetching the same page over and over, thinking it's different, because there's some data that appears there. So that's an issue. There's another huge problem with vulnerability scanners and spiders, which is authentication. If you go to a website like Amazon and you don't log in, you really only see a very small amount of the site. You can see the products, but you can't buy anything. So logging in would really help. And so you'd have to log in and get a valid cookie and feed it into the spider, and they can often do that. But the problem is they will often log out because they'll click a logout function or do something that invalidates your session, so they don't stay logged in. And then, of course, you can ask what privileges you have being logged in. So if you log in with administrative privileges, a spider will find an administrative page and click every link, doing things like delete user, shut down database, restart server, So you really don't want it logged in as administrator. That's why there's quite a few things that you really have to do with manual testing. All right, then there's user-directed spidering, which is what you can do with Burp, where you just explore the website by hand, and it just keeps track of everything you do. So this is just a way to record what you've done, and we'll do this in a few minutes in a demonstration. So I'll start this, so I'm going to launch Burp, get Burp, and I put the steps here so people can do it easily if they want to repeat these. It's good to get a little bit of practice with Burp. So when you launch Burp, you see this splash page showing it off. Let me try to make it fit on the screen. All right. And I don't know what all this is. I'd always just click next. I don't care about this, and start Burp. I don't know what those first 2 pages are for. I never done anything other than just start it, because all I want is ordinary Burp. So this is ordinary Burp. Now, every time you launch Burp, I could update it, but I don't care. I'll do it later. So the first thing you always have to do whenever you start Burp is go to the Proxy tab and turn off Intercept. If you don't, nothing will work. It launches in intercept mode, so all traffic is blocked, which is very annoying. This is probably the #1 question I get from students. My Burp doesn't work. If you don't do this, your Burp will not work. Now, you can open a browser, and this browser is already connected to Burp, and it's already configured to trust Burp for HTTPS connections, which is very nice. So you can load anything and see the traffic. So I'm going to go to my website, which I got as a website to practice hacking on, Hackazon. It's an HTTP website, not HTTPS, so you have to put that in manually. And then hackazon.chamsclass.info. This is got from somebody, I think. Now what's going on with this nonsense? Connection reset? All right. I tried it right before class and it worked. Let me try turning on a VPN. It may be that City College is blocking this traffic. That's happened before. All right, see if this does anything good. Yep, okay, that was City College blocking it, which is often the case. So when you're on the wireless network, City College blocks a lot of things. In this room, you can use Danger Zone, which will get you outside the City College firewall. You can also use a VPN if you have one, and I've got one. So now I'm able to connect. So I've connected to Hackazon. So now if I look at Burp, I can look at the target here, and here's the site map showing all the websites I've been to, and here's Hackazon, and you can expand it, and it shows you all the things it loaded. These are all the pieces of Hackazon that it loaded, like the cascading style sheets and so on. And so if I do things on the Hackazon site, it will record them there. So go to Hackazon. I want to put a couple items in the cart and then look to see how it looks in Burp. So let me go here. I've not logged in to Hackazon. See, I could make an account and log in, but I haven't. But you can shop anyway. So I'll click on this bottle and put it in the cart. And then I can click on something else, like whatever this is, and put that in the cart. Okay, so now I got 2 items in my shopping cart. And so it's interesting, you can see where those are stored. If you go to Burp, you can see the cart is here. And the ad is there. Those are the 2 products added to my cart. So these are the requests that added those items to my cart. And you can click one of these and see the exact request that did it over here. This thing should move. Nope, still not moving. There we go. All right, if you go here, you can see the request. That was a post request, and down here was the product ID and the quantity to add it to my cart. All right. So Now, let's go back to the slides and see what comes next. Now I think I want to make an account and log in. Yeah, it's in this, and now you can see here the items in the cart. All right, now let's take a look at the user container down here. The user container has login, password, register, and login has 2 URLs, and that's it. There's only like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines in the user container, but that's because I have not logged in. So now let's log in. I can make an account here. I made an account earlier. I think I remember it. So I'm just going to sign in. You can sign up and make a new account, but I remember I made one called Sam Demo. So I'll log in as Sam Demo and my password. All right, and I sign in. I don't know. I don't care about saving. Now I'm logged in. Okay. Now that I've logged in, it sees it knows who I am here. I've got a thing called Your Account. So let's go see how the login area looks now. Now it has this request has been added to it. This is the request that logged in. Post user login, and down here's the data with my name and password. So that's what happens. Now that I've logged in, it's recording that information here, which I wouldn't have seen before. So that's user-directed spidering. And you can see how that would help you track down what's going on a site. All right, so let's try a Kahoot. I should have them ready to go here. And I do. All right. Yeah, I'm glad you move around in the room. That's the thing. That thing is kind of low, so moving to the right location is the way to see it. I can't make it project higher in here. Burp is an app you should install. Yes. Yeah, the connection should be back. Oh. See if the streaming is working. Yeah, I think it's working, yeah. The connection should have just stopped for a couple seconds when I switched to the VPN. Yeah, it looks like it's working. Okay. Anyway, yes, and Burp is an app you should definitely install. You will need to use Burp for almost everything in this class. And Burp is a safe app. You can just put it on your real machine. It does not need to be in a virtual machine or anything. That's right. That's all it does, recording what you do. That's right. You can argue about it, but they call that user-directed spidering. It's just recording where you go. That's all. Yeah. Yeah, it's the manual process. It's not automatic spidering. It's what you could call manual spidering, perhaps. Guess I don't need this yet. All right. Do I have a safe link for install? Well, sure. If you want to install Burp, it's from Portswigger. Download. Oh, let me not put it in that one so people can see that. I'll get it here. Download it. Burp. Yeah, this is the official one. I'll put the link in the chat. By the way, you're right to ask to have that concern. If you Google for software, often the links lead you to malware. There's quite a lot of news about that. So Portswigger is the correct source for Burp. That's an intelligent question. I don't think Burp isn't popular enough for someone to make a fake one yet, but it could be. Portswigger. Portswigger.net. And it was the first one when I Googled for Burp. Because I don't think anybody's made a fake Burp. Yeah, Portswigger. Yeah. I think swig is a British term for drinking booze. So that's the company that makes Burp, yeah. So that's the official site. Good. Yeah, Kahoot seems to be improving their product quite a bit. They just recently started charging money, so I bet they're paying developers. Eggs, these are avocados, right? Yeah. Well, these things here, yeah. Well, they're upgrading the product. All right. All right, so which tool will find every page in a web app? All right, well, the best answer available is Spider, although I'd like to rephrase that question. It tries to find every page. As we said, it isn't successful at finding every page, but the point was to try to find every page. All right. What part of a website has validation rules? Yep, forms, where you typically have validation. All right, which feature is not a problem for a spider? All right, many pages. This is why it's good. An automated tool is good when you have many pages. It will not get bored. These other things can be problems, but it doesn't have any problem with a lot of pages. All right, what risk is there if you spider while administrator? Yeah, that's the problem. It may do administrative things, like delete things. All right, how do you examine HTTPS requests with Burp? Yeah, that's the one. Burp automatically creates fake certificates, and your browser has to be configured to trust them. And the built-in browser is configured already to do that, so that's why it's handy for that purpose. All right, so what Burp feature stops all internet traffic? Intercept, like I say, the first thing you have to do is turn off intercept, or you can't get anything done. All right, it's Pete. All right, and JZ, I hope those are real initials. My grader might be able to figure out who that is. Okay. All right. So let's go back here. All right, so user-directed spidering is what I talk about, where the user just browses through and something like Burp is keeping track of everything you do. Now you can log in, fill out the forms. You can also avoid dangerous functionality like deleting things. Now, Chrome's developer tools can show you a lot of information about a website without a proxy. And the point of this is to help people write websites. So if I, let me just load up, I can probably just use Brave here. This should have developer tools. So if I go to the same thing, Hackathon, all right. If my VPN is on, maybe I didn't get the HTTP in front of it correctly. Yep, it's HTTPS. Hackathon is HTTP, which is no longer normal, so you have to put it in. All right, so here we are. And so I can view the developer tools. It's View Developer Tools. And if I go to the network tab, it's already got preserve log. Now, if I refresh this page, it's going to show me every request. And it's even going to give me a time of how long it took to load each part, so I can try to figure out what part of it is delaying it, like whatever this is came in really late, and so on. And you can see every request too, like hackathon.samsclass.info. Here's one that loaded some ping. Here's the request URL, the response headers, the request headers. You can see all the details of the request. Now I don't know how to modify and replay requests from this, although I think that might be possible. But you can do quite a bit of what Burp does right here in the developer tools. And that's what web developers often do. A Burp is more powerful, but you can do quite a lot here. And of course, it doesn't matter if you use HTTP or HTTPS, the browser will have no problem with that. All right, so anyway, so finding hidden content can be a chore. Automated testing will help, manual testing, and then just luck, guessing the names of things. Especially really important stuff can be left behind. There was a news article that came out last week showing that 1 in 8 websites have made this mistake. They've made a backup of important stuff and just put it on the server in public view. And it tends to have a predictable name, so there are attackers guessing those names and finding those backups and finding secrets in them. It's amazing that anybody would do that, make a backup of something right on a public server instead of putting the backup somewhere private. But apparently a lot of people do that, and they use pretty predictable names, so you can just find it. So this is the kind of thing you'd want to find, something that they didn't intend for you to see. And you also might see different functionality for different categories of users. Here's what I mentioned, the backups of files you might find, which might have things like usernames and passwords or API keys in it. Right, or other things. Also test functionality. This happened to Microsoft last week. Microsoft is bringing out a new competitor to ChatGPT, an AI, to work in Bing, and they accidentally turned it on briefly. And some users saw it and played with it, and then they turned it off again. So they should have had it on some testing server, but they accidentally turned it on the main server and somebody caught it. This sort of thing tends to happen. Anyway, so you might see things like that. Configuration and include files with data in them. Source files, if you can see the source files, they often have confidential information, like the actual logic you're using to filter out malicious URLs and such, comments in source code, and log files. Log files can contain all sorts of interesting things, like often session tokens, which you can use to get into people's accounts. And one big technique is just brute forcing. You just try many possible names, login, forgot password, GIF, about abstract. This is a bunch of tools, hacking tools, just have a word list of all the common names of directories and files you'll find on a web server. Burp has a brute forcing tool that can fill in from any list of words. Now, by default, to punish you for using the free version, the Burp brute forcing tool is really slow, and you'll use it in the projects. You'll be breaking into logins using usernames and passwords, but you'll find out the way Burp works is it only guesses like 5 times fast, and then it slows down a lot, like one guess every 5 seconds, just to irritate you, because they want you to pay for the pay version. And there are ways around that. We'll talk about it. But anyway, the default brute forcer is just a demonstration, and it only works for maybe 50 or 100 guesses before it takes too long. There's a lot of alternatives, though. One thing I'll mention is I was pretty reluctant to even use Burp at first because you can totally do everything Burp does with simple Python scripts. If you know a little bit of scripting, it's really not doing anything complicated. And Burp will even help you write the Python. So in a way, you don't even need Burp. Burp is really just a GUI to make it more convenient to run some pretty standard Python scripts. It's not doing anything too complicated. But it turns out to be enormously helpful. All right, and dirb, for example, is a very good brute force spidering tool you'll find in Kali. You can run dirb on my hackathon, and it will just try 5,000 words, just try everything, and it'll find things. All it's doing is it has a list of common things, and it's a good place to start. When you don't know what to do on a website, run dirb, and it will just get a list of the pages it was able to find. That's a good place to start. All right, and I see, I'll start up the next Kahoot, and I see Jay-Z has identified himself, so I'll record your name. Let's get the 4B coming up. There we are. Well, so I hope. record this name anyway, and perhaps Kahoot is down. Let's see if the streaming is still working. Yeah, according to this, the stream is okay. Well, maybe Burp just has a problem. Let's try a refresh. I mean, maybe Kahoot is just having a problem. Well, that's right. Maybe I should turn off the VPN. You could be right. Let's try turning off the VPN. There may be a stutter in the stream. There was last time. It'll probably disconnect and yep, there it turns. It turned red, and it should recover. Waiting. Staying red. Well, while it's waiting, I'm going to try and open 4B. But this thing is still showing red, which is somewhat disturbing. So here's my streaming, and it's still showing red. So I think this might be something more serious than the VPN. Let's try see if I can ping google.com. I can. Well, then that's rude. Why is this still showing red? I'm going to stop and restart the streaming. Stop streaming. Start streaming. There does seem to be an internet problem in here of some kind. All right, I'm going to go to Danger Zone. We'll see if that improves things. That seemed to get this thing running, and it should also get the streaming running, I would think, logically. Let's see. Connecting. Could not access. Start streaming. There, now it's, okay. I think it's worked. There we are. Okay. So hopefully, folks, my stream stopped for a few seconds. I had to try different network configurations, but I think it's working now. It's showing green here. So, okay. Some kind of problem with the City College network. That is very common. Anyway, I was able to get in here by moving to the Danger Zone network, so you should be able to join the Kahoot. Whoa. Attempt to copy this name did not work. Let's try again. The pictures, oh yeah, they are, aren't they? That's strange, isn't it? So maybe they did have a problem at Kahoot. That may have been originally been a problem at Kahoot, but then I had a few problems at the network too. Yeah, isn't that funny? Looks like Kahoot's functionality is downgraded to the old version. Well, we'll see if it works. But I can tell the streaming is working because these people are finding the Kahoot, so that's good. The skull works, and the avocado, but those are probably standard Unicode things. All right, I guess this is it. All right, so what tool will show you the timing of the components as they load? All right, Chrome developer tools are good for that. All right, so which tool is ineffective in the free version? Yeah, burp's brute forcer. I see a question, doesn't burp also show the timing? I don't think so. Certainly not in a way that it's easy to see. I have never seen the time anywhere in burp. It,
Burp brute force.
a burp brute forcer, it's one of the attack tools that will just, you can give it a word list and insert the word list into a request and it will try all those words. So you can do it to break through logins or other things. But it's crippled in the free version just to irritate you by making it very slow. All right, so how do you find all the content hidden on a website? That's strange. Oh, maybe Kahoot is not broadcasting the questions for these. Or maybe it's a failure of Kahoot, or maybe it's a failure of me to choose the right setting. Well, anyway, the right answer here.
I think it's more like a cell phone version of it.
Yeah, but that might be a setting I change. So let me just record. There's no sure way. I'll record these winners. That's why it's extra credit, because they're often failures of it to be perfectly fair. But let me see if I got the right setting on here. I think all my things do have the right website setting now, though. For Austin. Okay, let me check the settings here. It was this one here, 4B, for example. There's an option to, no, not there. There's an option somewhere to reflect the questions. Maybe I can't find it. I found it before in previous semesters. Somewhere there are settings. Now I am not seeing them. Up here, maybe? All right, somewhere in Burp there's a setting to tell it to echo the questions to the users. And I thought it was a setting in every Kahoot. Somewhere here. Settings. There we are. But I'm not finding it. Well, I thought I already had it set for all my courses to echo. The previous one did. 4A echoed correctly to you, right? Yeah, okay, then and I think it's probably not my settings. It's probably just whatever's going wrong at Kahoot.
Yeah, it did in the first game, but in this game that we just started, it didn't.
Yeah, that's right. So this is what they added that feature recently. And it looks like they must have downgraded to the version of like a year ago when it wouldn't echo the questions to students. And that means the people in the room will have an advantage over the people on Twitch. And there's nothing I can do about it. Anyway, we'll see if Burp improves. That's right. That's part of why it's extra credit. There's always a few problems with Burp. With Kahoot, I mean. Anyway, all right. So there's no sure way to find everything. You know, things that are not linked and that don't have a name that you might guess, you'll have trouble finding them. Anyway, so you can look for patterns. So if you find something called forgot password, you could then try add password, get password, reset, that sort of thing. I've done this. Somebody asked me to look for security flaws on a website, and I noticed that the login form was like login 2. So I just went to login 1 and found the other website where you could just log in with the default password, and they were horrified. But you know, that's the kind of thing. So you might use numbers or dates in files. You can check the files that are included in the source code. Some of those are going to be readable, might have secrets. Java applets and ActiveX controls too, if they're using those. You can look for temporary files. A lot of tools create a temporary file when they're in use. Mac, if people have been uploading files, directories from Mac, it will include the GS store file, which is a directory index, which will have the name of files. And if you edit a file, it'll often create a temporary file by adding a -1 to the end or something like that while it's in use. I know Microsoft Office will do that. It will create temporary files. This is one reason why when you try to encrypt a hard drive, at one time, Microsoft said, all you have to do is encrypt your documents folder or your profile folder, but it turned out that is not true because when you're editing a Microsoft Office document, it puts temporary copies of the unencrypted data elsewhere. So the only thing that is secure is to encrypt the entire hard drive. That's what they discovered. And temp files are created by tools. All right, and of course, a tool that creates these temp file intends to delete them later, but if it crashes or something, then those files can be left on there, and then they'll have a copy of some version of something. So Burp Pro has a content discovery that will try brute forcing using built-in lists like dir-b and generate word lists and all these things. So it does have some spidering capacity to try to spider the website for you, but only if you pay for the Pro version, which is like $300. I've never used it. All the pros say it's well worth it once you start earning bug bounties, but everything we're doing here you can do with the free version. You can get like a 90-day trial of the Pro version if you want it, though. All right, Google, by the way, had a tool called Skipfish, which I guess is still around, and the main thing it does is spider incredibly well. It's incredibly effective, and it's still in use. I checked. I think it's still included in Kali. It's, as you would imagine, I'm not sure it's that good at finding vulnerabilities, but it is very good at spidering, which is, of course, Google's primary concern, is finding everything.
Is that tool free?
Yeah, it's a free open source tool. Yeah, it's free anyway. I think it's also open source. I had a project years ago where my hacking students would use it. Then it didn't seem that important and I quit using it, but the tool still exists. All right, and then there's public information like the Wayback Machine, cached content, posts to forums where you might find information about what people have been putting on a website. Google has advanced search. You can specify the site and then it will look only in that domain. You can look for the word login on the site and find every page that includes the word login on the page. You can find pages that link to the page. You can find pages related to the page. You can also use an in URL login, and then it will force the word login to be in the URL. I've used that too. These are all useful ways to search for things. Yes, I've used OWASP's app. OWASP's app is pretty nice too. OWASP's app has a vuln scanner, which a lot of people like. It will spider a website and try a bunch of attacks. It's very fast. Yeah. I think you can probably do better if you pay for a tool, but as far as free tools go, OWASP's app is pretty good. All right, and so anyway, some web servers will let you see directory contents. That's a fairly common misconfiguration, where it shows you all the files in the directory instead of making you know the names. That's handy. And of course, scripts may contain vulnerabilities. Nikto is a famous tool that's been around forever that looks for certain known vulnerable files and versions. It's a very simple tool. It's not a very thorough vulnerability scanner. It just looks for certain well-known files that are present in vulnerable versions. And Nikto is the Linux product, and Wikto is the Windows version of this product. It's very easy to use and very fast. I've just never found anything much good with it, but it does try for certain vulnerabilities. By the way, it will have false positives. All vulnerability scanners will often tell you things are vulnerable when they are not. This is a thing to know about them. You have to manually test whatever a vulnerability scanner tells you. So here's Nikto. I ran Nikto on Hackazon, and so it complained about various things: no anti-click jacking header, no X content type header, no CGI directories. This contains a wildcard entry. Apache appears to be outdated. You know, a few problems. None of them too critical. But if you find anything exciting, you have to verify it, because it often is wrong. All right, and then there's functional paths we've talked about, where every request would go to the same URL, like everything's going to bank.jsp, and everything is down here in the parameters: transfer, confirm transfer from account to account. So that's an issue. Exploring this would be difficult for an automated scanner. You might have to manually explore it, because your automated scanner will have great difficulty knowing how many pages it's seen. For example, you've got an account number in here, so it would think it's a different page for every account number, or else it most likely will just think there's only one page, bank.jsp, and not pay attention to the parameters. So you end up making a map of your app. You have a login, then you have some forms, then you have bill payment and log out and transfer funds. You make it fine. You show the path. The user is here, then they go here, then they can go here, and that's how you map out the things to do. And by the way, the vulnerable things you find are often off the beaten path, because the main functionality gets tested a lot. So people tend to fix the problems there. The vulnerabilities I find are usually in something that's not used much, like the password reset or something. You know, something that is not used very often is more likely to have a bug that nobody noticed. All right, then you can have hidden parameters. You can add debug to requests or test, hide source, things like this, and Burp has a feature to try that, adding these extra parameters to requests to see if you can turn on test or hidden functionality. So you find the core functionality of the app, that does the main thing it's there to do, like the banking, and then, like I mentioned, peripheral behavior, things off on the side that aren't going to be that thoroughly tested, like the logging and things like that. Then the security mechanisms, the session state, access control, and authentication, those are the main things that go wrong. Somehow it doesn't completely keep track of who you are correctly, and there's a way to fool it into thinking you're somebody else. Yeah, I see people talk about an ESXi vuln from 2 years ago. Yeah, that's out there. Yeah. Anyway, things like user registration, password change, account recovery, these are often where the problem is, because those are very important. Obviously, if anything goes wrong there, then you'll be able to fool it into thinking you're somebody else. So any place it takes user-supplied input, like post data, query string, URL, cookies, any of that could in principle contain malicious characters and XML tags and such. So client-side technologies that are here that process data, that's where you look at those. The server-side technologies, the web server software, interaction with databases is a big one for things like SQL injection, and all the other scripts that process data. Each one of them may be a source of a vulnerability. And here's the entry points. This is what you usually call the attack surface, all the ways data comes in. The URL string, the parameters in a post request, the cookies, all the other headers like user agent, referrer, accept, and host, all those can be modified by the user and might be a way to attack the application. And you'll do a lot of these in the projects. RESTful URLs we mentioned, you can have parameters that look like folder names. So this is actually, electronics and phone are actually parameters, but they appear in the folder name. So again, that might confuse your spider or something, but it's a thing to be aware of. And request parameters, this is the normal case. You have the name of the company and then a parameter over here, but you can have non-standard formats. You can have a semicolon separating them. You can have a $sign separating them. You can in principle have anything as long as you write a script on the server to interpret it, and people do all sorts of goofy things, like put an equal in here and then another slash. It's very annoying. If there was just a standard way to do this and everybody obeyed the standard, everybody's life would be easier, but that's not what's happened on the web. It's crazy. People just write all sorts of strange things. Now, the user agent is there to tell you what kind of browser you're using. In practice, the main thing is to tell if you're using a cell phone. Then I can show you a smaller version. You can also use user agent to identify spiders from websites. And this is something, if you want a lot of people to go to your website and you want to charge them money, what you do is you detect the user agent, and if it's the Google spider, then you let it see the website and index it. But if it's not the Google spider, then you put up a box and charge money. Google doesn't like this. It's a common trick. You'll come and find a page, you read the preview, it's what I want, you click on it, and then you can't get in without paying money. You could change your user agent to the Google user agent to punch through, and that's, like many other paywalls, it's often pretty easy to get in. Anyway, that's an issue. And you might be able to put script in the user agent tag, just like any other tag, but the main thing changing user agent does is let you reach functionality that has been hidden for that reason, to try to trick people into going to it and then trick them into paying. If you're behind a load balancer or a proxy, then you might see a forwarded for header, which will identify the source because there's actually multiple servers, and it's keeping track of which server it sent you to. Is it possible to randomize the user agent? I think you can do that in SQL map and probably in other hacking tools. It's not something you'd normally do, and it wouldn't keep you anonymous. The user agent is not considered a failure anonymity. The user agent isn't anything personal. It just says like Firefox version and stuff. So, in principle, you could randomize it, but I'm not aware of a tool that does that. Yeah.
So,
Except SQL map. SQL map does it. Yeah.
like, on my phone, I go and have it request the full website sometimes, and a lot of times it won't display, it'll just give me the mobile version.
Yeah.
So if it does display the full website on my mobile phone,
Yeah.
does that mean there might be a vulnerability?
It's an interesting question. Certainly my website would do that because I'm just not a very good coder, so it shows the same version to everybody. I don't think...
Major newspaper, for instance.
Yeah, I don't think if it shows you the full website on a phone, it's particularly a vulnerability. It's just a functionality problem. Then the letters are too small and stuff. I don't think it represents a vulnerability, but it is a clue that they're not very professional designers, and that might be a clue that you'll find other mistakes on there. Yeah, it's a very good question. Anyway, and then there's out-of-band channels. Data can come in other ways like email, automatic uploads, like WebDAV. WebDAV is a system where you have a folder, and anything you put in the folder is automatically uploaded to the server. This is a common thing. Intrusion detection systems might sniff traffic, and that might be put back into a web application so it can be viewed. So that's another way that data could come in. You could just send traffic to the server, which would trigger the IDS, and then that data is going to go in and be processed. This was what happened with Log4j. You could attack the logging engine and take over the machine, and not directly feeding data into the app. And of course, there are other, their API often has a problem. For non-browser user agents, like the put and requests from cell phones. Cell phones are sending all these requests up, and they're not a browser. They're sending small requests to get little pieces of data, and a lot of those have vulnerabilities, and we're going to have a whole series of projects attacking APIs later, because this is a major problem. All right, let's take a look at another Kahoot. Let's see if the Kahoot's going to work better now. Let's see how it looks. This is not a good sign. Well, it's just coming around to the hour anyway. Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll pick up at 7:10, and we'll see if the Kahoots work by then or not. Might have to put them off till next week. So I'll be back. Let me stop the recording.